Wish to welcome you to the Superintendent's Workshop. It is being held in the Joe and Idolette Junior TEC. I ask that out of respect to everyone, please silence all of your devices if you are in the room. Oh. Yes, it's on. You good? Okay. All right, so going over that again.
Take two.
Good afternoon, and welcome to our Superintendent's Workshop. We are meeting in the Joanne Idolette Junior TEC. I ask that out of respect to everyone, please silence your electronic devices at this time. Also, if you have any material you wish to share with any board member, please give it to our Executive Assistant, Mrs. Moray. She's seated over there. We will take a break every 2 hours, or if needed before that. Before I turn this over to the superintendent, I'm going to do a little commercial. Normally wouldn't do this during a workshop, but since they're here and people are wondering what they are, there are two drinks that the Shark culinary students are producing for their senior project, and they are selling them. I forget the amounts, but I think it was $4 and $6 with boba or without. This one is the blue coconut lemonade Shark Bite, and this one is the Shark Chomp boba. And it is also with the tropical lemonade, but it has the boba in it, which is really cool. Great idea for a senior project. They don't have any preservatives in them, so they only stay for 3 days. That's the only drawback. And now I'd like to turn it over to you, Dr. Moore.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're going to begin with the mid-year update of our district strategic plan. And as you look at it, you can see, yes, this is a 2-year plan, like 2027. So we have approved a very aggressive plan, and we have aggressively been working towards hitting the identified areas within this 2-year strategic plan. As a reminder, you all know this, we're driving our work around 3 specific pillars. We call them our guiding principles. Connected by community, a strong focus in connecting our community together, just not with our schools, but connecting our community together. Fueled by innovation, a good piece of this district's, this update will deal around the innovation work that we have done. I think we've done more in the last 6 months than most districts do in 5 years around the area of innovation, and then continuing to invest and grow leaders at every level of the organization, ultimately getting the most important decisions as close to kids as possible, giving those leaders, whether it is a teacher leader, an instructional coach, administrator, the skills that they need, the authority to make decisions to ensure that we as a school system are moving as fast as we possibly can by learning as fast as we possibly can. Our area of our strategic plan is into 5 specific areas, which remain basically the same from the first 5-year strategic plan that we implemented. In the areas of academic success, and we'll go over some mid-year data at the end, but these are some of the things that we're very, very proud of. We've realigned collaborative planning from just not a simple implementation model, but how we're actually delivering instruction, enhancing the data that we're pushing into that system to ensure that we are creating very meaningful experiences for our teachers, through our teachers, ultimately to benefit our students. The Innovate Ed educational program enhancements at 8 different schools. We're going to talk a lot about that as we move throughout this presentation. Enhanced alignment of curriculum mats for critical thinking and with ELA, civics, and 8th grade. And a lot of that feedback came from our students and making sure that we use those opportunities to be very strategic, hands-on, less screen time, more interaction within those specific courses. So we're happy with what we see there. Partnerships is also going to be a theme as we move through this presentation. Partnership with McKee Botanical Gardens, the Echo Quest internship, and these are students from Osceola Magna School having the opportunity to take that resource in our community and help what we're doing in our classroom to come to life. Project Lead the Way, another program that we're integrating starting the fall of 2026 with our STEAM and CTA programs. And then partnership with the Riverside Theater, which is an on-site learning about the theater of the arts. That is a comprehensive theater program. They have a construction site, or they make the sets, they make the costumes, they do all of the lighting. The experience those kids are receiving with that partnership is absolutely outstanding. Safety, culture, and climate. You guys know that we've done a lot of work about accelerating the single point of entry, the vestibules specifically. I think we have 3 coming up this evening, Bruce, right? Which is ahead of schedule, and we'll be done that work next year. So we're happy about that. But we've also partnered with the ELC. This is a beautiful program where, once again, an outside classroom that we've been able to expand that partnership and make sure our students have the opportunity, thousands of our students have the opportunity to go through and see the work that is there. Specifically, another addition is at Pelican Island with our Eco Ambassadors. We've established K-8 ambassadors in our K-8 middle schools and peer mentoring programs for our middle and high school students, really connecting our students back to our students. It's just not all about teaching and learning. It's about building relationships, and we're very, very proud of some of that work. I'm talking about these two kind of in connection, developed and initiated the collection of district employee pulse check survey, which is rather than wait to the end of the year, frequent evaluations of how folks in our organization are feeling as we're doing the work in real time so we can hold ourselves accountable to our guiding principles and shift and change action. Also, we established a district connection session, which is from feedback to all employees as it relates to our district's strategic plan through extended cabinet, the work that we're doing as extended cabinet, because we are now moving so fast in our organization, being very strategic and making sure that the information is flowing down. So we hear from everyone who's ultimately doing this work, understand how this work impacts them, and it grows the work in the right way because the flow of communication at both horizontal and vertical ensures that we're getting that information. We've re-implemented how we use direct family and follow-up processes for schools, tours, and exit interviews. So just a very comprehensive program. Tours are happening throughout the year. We're seeing children come back from charter schools. We're seeing children come back from home schools. And a big piece of that work is just not the programming within the schools, but the intentional design to build relationships and get folks in to our schools. Community engagement has always been a priority for us as a group of leaders. The 15 pillar events, as you mentioned, and the 35 district engagement events, the pillar events are to connect adults to adults. And we're happy to see some of the relationships that have been established and the level of accountability that provides for us as a system. We did hold the Moonshot series preview and premiere, which was absolutely wonderful. At the Riverside Theater, almost 1,200 people had the opportunity to come in and see the collective work that our community is doing around literacy. We've began and continue to do initiated coffee and conversations. The owner of most of the Dunkin' Donuts in town is allowing me to kind of take over the lobby or the sitting space in his restaurant and just connect with folks, and it's been absolutely outstanding to this point. We were able to complete phase one of the Jimmy Graves Community Complex, and we were excited to get that done. That was a huge body of work. And then if you look at some of this, putting the right people in the right seats is what this slide says to me at the bottom. Last year, we had 591 followers in 24-25 to 14,683 in quarter two. That is effectively communicating and engaging with your community. We had 190,000 impressions in 24-25, but in quarter two, we have 2.6 million. So leveraging social media and using it to connect folks to the great work we are doing is something we all should be proud of. Talent and development, we were able to leverage the Wire to Learn Fast Summit, 31 different states coming in to see how we do this work, how in fact we have wired ourselves to move as fast as we possibly can. Implemented the Synergy FPL STEAM Educator Empowerment Project in literacy coaching across the system for teachers and professional learning. Very excited about that. Aligned K-8 scheduling for our 6th grade Singleton teachers. So we have 4 schools that brought in 6th grade this year, but they do not feel in isolation by themselves because they have the opportunity through this unique initiative to connect with the other 6th grade teachers and learn from each other. We launched Innovate Ed in support of the educational operational innovation efficiencies, which is the project of redesigning our school system. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Organization and fiscal responsibility. This is something I continue to highlight. Not only were we on the verge of being academically bankrupt 6 years ago, we are also even closer to being on the verge of being financially bankrupt. But as we have done this work, we're really taking a strong focus at the organization as a whole to ensure that we're just not fiscally responsible, that we're growing and connecting ourselves as an organization around how we think, what we collectively believe as an organization, and then ultimately how we respond across the organization as itself. So examples of that is the AI task force, led by Dr. McMahon, doing some absolutely outstanding work. And kind of what we're learning is, less screen time is a good thing, and some of our academic success that we'll talk about in a minute. I weigh heavily on the fact that we spend a lot of times demonstrating mastery, not on a computer, but in a classroom, and connecting students to use and demonstrate that mastery. We piloted scalable student-informed K-8 offerings in our digital discoveries to serve as model for future district-wide program redesign. The website Innovest Spotlights is the opportunity to really connect people to the impact our students are experiencing to. And we continue to leverage our education fund back on the innovation as well as investing in leaders. And that theory of action has really helped us. We spent a great time last year investing in our educational leaders, and we're getting ready to continue some of that work in the coming months. But reinvesting in our leaders, what does that do? It helps them to define the areas in which they need to innovate as leaders to grow us as a system at their specific levels. This is some very, for us, to be very honest, this is very old data. When you look at this data, Indian River County takes us the first week in December. So we're comparing ourselves to the state, which in most cases, districts are we have 5 or 6 weeks less of instruction in these specific windows. Why? Because we want the information as fast as possible so we can respond to it and act to it. So what you're going to see in absolutely most cases, outperforming and outgrowing with 4 to 6 weeks less of instruction as you move through. So in elementary schools, 3 through 5, plus the 6th graders and our K-8s that are growing out, 2 percentage points higher, but growing at a faster clip as well. In middle school, ELA, growing at the same space, but 4 to 6 weeks less of instruction, 1 percentage point higher. High school, 1% lower than the state actually, but growing at a faster clip. And then from a district's perspective as a whole, 50% growing at a faster clip. In mathematics, very similar, actually a little bit better trend, outperforming the state in elementary, growing at a 3 percentage point faster clip. Same thing in middle school, same students scoring at proficiency, but growing at a faster clip, 2 percentage points higher. And from a district perspective, grades 3 through 8, significantly higher and growing at a faster rate of speed. So when you look at this specific data, it's extremely limited because you're solely looking at students who have met the proficiency mark. It doesn't count for the levels of growth of students who are already above that mark or students who are below that specific mark. As we've discussed before, we hold ourselves accountable. Everyone is being evaluated from the assistant principals all the way up to me on 3 specific areas. We call them our KPIs. The growth of high-performing students, students who are 4 and 5. It's great that you're 4 and 5, but at the end of the day, we want you to be a year smarter. So we want to make sure we hold ourselves accountable for that KPI. Our middle of the range students, it is about moving to growth, moving to proficiency and exceeding proficiency. And then for the students on the lowest 25%, that rate of growth actually exceeds 1 year of learning because ultimately we have to get them back to where they need to be. So from an academic standpoint, looking at currently where we sit this year, couldn't be any prouder of what I see in schools. And we have 35 folks at our district deployed in schools to support our principals and to support our teachers. Some of our cabinet members will be getting up in the middle of this presentation, not because they're rude, but because they have groups of students waiting for them at schools in which they will be providing a 6 to 7 week intervention for those students to help those students get to where they need to be moving throughout the year. So very focused plans. The effort that our principals and teachers are putting in should be something that should be commended from a systems perspective. When you look at high school graduation rate, this data came out a few months, beginning as we came back into the year 2026. Maintaining that 95% higher, absolutely outstanding. College and career readiness is another area in which we're very proud of. As a system on the far end of the screen, we're now at 85%, where we were 3 years ago, 69%. This means students are graduating with dual enrollment completed, AP passed or a career industry exam that puts them advantage up as they go into the world of work with this certification. So very proud of our two high schools who continue to climb up this, making sure it's just not about getting students to pass the graduation and put the diploma in their hand. It's making sure they are, in fact, ready to do what they have been called to do in the next phase of their life. District innovation updates, we continue to do this work November to January, 30 meetings, over 600 folks attended, professional learning for our district administrators as to what this innovation would look like. Continue to meet with our building level leaders and faculty walkthroughs to define where these spaces would be. We have planning meetings, which is this cadence that we've created, and then once a month, the impacted schools receive a communication regarding anything that's had a change or been completed to keep them in the know. We've already had one open house, which was some of the most positive feedback that I received. We were able to take the Rosewood students over to what is currently Storm Grove, allowed them to see what an elementary school classroom looked like, allowed them to see the innovation spaces that will be available for them. It was absolutely outstanding. And then you look at some of the things that we've done from a systems perspective, the rezoning of schools, the rebranding of 4 schools, shifting start times, enhancing educational program and designs at 8 different schools, middle school, elective redesign, faculty and technology preparation. Most strategic plans over 5 years can't accomplish this, where most of this has been done throughout this school year. So a great deal of work being done in our school system. And that is our mid-year update. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Board members, any comments? Mr. Dyer?
Yeah, I had one. I think it's a great mid-year update, and I'm glad to see that we are continuing to progress in terms of academic achievement. The thing with a strategic plan, which is great, but it has a lot of soft things like established and some of the other words, featured, partnered, when really the thing that matters is achieved and accomplished. Mm-hmm. And I think that while we can congratulate ourselves that we're doing great in some of these other things and we're making some progress, the end result is achieved and accomplished is what we really need to do. The other interesting thing in that deck to me was in the acceleration, career acceleration, college and career, that the charter school is actually lower than the district as a whole. Is there anything that we could do to help them to get the whole district up more? Or
So
what, I mean, how does that work? Do they see the same figures?
So a one-year regression, I can't specifically speak to what happened at that particular school. Yeah. But what we have learned from that in real time is as we're getting ready for the 3rd grade outcomes, I actually sent an email to all of the charter school elementary principals saying, if you would like to meet with my team regarding their academic outcomes, prioritizing which students will need which services over the course of the next several months, we'd be more than willing to do that. So that
Did
same.
anybody take you up on that?
They all did. It's
What?
Monday. It's this afternoon. Next Monday afternoon. They all did.
Oh, they all
which
did.
to me
Great,
is
great,
super
fantastic.
encouraging. We have created a data ecosystem and not only the identification of students, but a cadence of support and services to make sure students have every opportunity afforded to them. And if we have it here locally and we're letting 31 states come in, we should be able to share it with the school down the street.
Absolutely.
So we are doing that. When it comes to academic outcomes, I think it's important to note, my outcome will in fact be the academic outcomes, as it will be for everyone sitting at this table, as it will be for principals. So 100%. It's nice to do these things,
Right.
and we do these things in order to be more efficient and effective at servicing children to ensure an outcome for our community. We expect to exceed our outcomes across the board as we're in this final push. And what I can tell you from what I observe in schools, the attention to focus, the push, the level of collaboration, the strategy that's in place, the quality of instruction, it always comes down to it, but I just want to commend those who are doing the work every single day for their efforts to make sure we can have this celebration at the end of the year.
Dr. Jones?
Thank you very much. first of all, for getting all those district people out to interventions. I've heard from a couple schools, and I know that the students are doing well with this, and I appreciate you going out there. You know, when you talk about academic outcome, and that is our overall, and in order to have a good academic outcome, the students have to feel safe, the students have to feel welcome, and they have to have those connections, and I think that's a very powerful way on how we handle that. Dr. Ward, the PM3s, are those usually starting late April, early May?
Oh, God, I'm looking at talent. They start in May. Once again, we follow the same. We want to test early for progress monitoring data to help inform instruction, and then we maximize every instructional moment that we have, which is both good and bad, because you have to test 95%, but we want to make sure we maximize every single opportunity. So there's districts who begin testing way too early just to get done. Our job is to produce an outcome and make sure kids are academically ready to go to the next grade level. So we take as much time to teach them as possible.
Thank you. And thinking a little bit about that in our legislative priorities when we look at attendance. And one thing I know we're working on and get a little bit harder on truancy and so forth, but just making sure that our parents know, our students know, you've got to be in the classroom for the instructional delivery, and I think that's important. One other question, are we definitely moving Wabasso to Glendale this coming school
So
year?
this year, no, we are not. The board has not made that decision. That is the tentative plan. There's a number of very specific and unique programs at Glendale. Right. There's also some very interesting work that we have to do at Glendale regarding some under-the-ground plumbing. So we're going to have to retrofit that particular space. I can tell you the moves that we have approved is pushing us at a very, very fast clip. If you see Nick Westenberger, just give him a hug. Just embrace him. He's going to get it done for us, but I think we bit off just the right amount to get it done at the opening of schools.
We did get some questions, or I did get some questions on that. And again, just what Mr. Dyer said on that college and career readiness, I think it's so important if they're getting a certified industry certification, whether they go into that field or not, it gives them opportunity to work in college. And I hear more and more of that from our seniors. So I'm very, very happy with that. But, you know, making those community connections, having more followers, getting students back into our school system, I think is key, and you're doing a great job with that. Thank you.
Dr. Pasca, you good? Dr. Rosario?
Yes. Just taking little notes here. I'm going to start with my last note regarding Wabasso. When we get to that place, I mean, I've mentioned this before. It would be really, really nice to see Wabasso, oh, sorry. Let me bring it closer. I'm going to start with Wabasso. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I'm going to start with Wabasso because I've mentioned this before. I think the Wabasso building itself, if we ever relocate those students, has such historical value to our community, to that community where it is. I would hate to see it kind of fall to the wayside or, you know, close down and not be used. We have incredible facilities there, playground already established there. It would be nice to see something similar to what we've done at the Jimmy Graves playground, you know, the field across the street from Vero Beach High School, something similar to that in Wabasso, so that we have another facility for parents to be able to use the playground and families to just go and have a good time if they can, or something similar. Maybe turn it into a museum, or I don't know how, you know, a teacher learning center, who knows. But it's such a beautiful building, and it has a lot of historical value. So just kind of mentioning that in preparation for the future. I'd like to piggyback off of what Mr. Dyer mentioned about the words achieve and accomplish. I think those are really critical. I've often had issue with soft words in our strategic plan because I think what you know is that strategic planning has to have measurable goals. We have to be able to measure them, and words that support the measure of these goals would be achieve and accomplish, establish. but some of these other ones are not typically measured. They're nice and they feel good. But yeah, so I would agree with Mr. Dyer on that. I want to go to the math slide, the fast mathematics. Can we pull that up? I think it's slide 10. You there? Okay. So I'd like to just ask, Dr. Moore, you're in some conversations that, and maybe even Ms. Besora, that board members may not be in. Are there any discussions statewide about the low scores overall, just overall low scores in math statewide, and what some of these issues are? A lot of people are blaming COVID for it. I'm tending to believe, sure, COVID may have had an impact, but by this point, there should have been a turnaround, so I'm not sure what else is going on.
So it's important to note, one of the things, there's a number of things, but what is unique about Florida's progress monitoring, when the students take this assessment as early as the first week in December, going into January, it is an assessment as if they were to take it at the end of the year. It's covering all of the standards in which students are
Supposed to know.
supposed to. So seeing a lower score when there's, in some cases for us, 5 months of content they haven't been exposed to is why you see this particular, a low number both at the state as well as the district level. The other thing, you can see that it's only 3 through 8 in terms of progress monitoring. You're not getting credit for students who have tested out of mathematics. So about a third of our 10th graders take algebra and geometry, in some cases middle school. So they're not contributing to the district's grade because they've already tested out of the algebra and geometry, which is part of the district's grade, but they're 2 years ahead, in some cases 1 year ahead. So math is always going to be pulled down for districts that say we're going to put the decision of growing students as fast as we possibly can to give them as much exposure to the complex mathematics that prepares them. So it's a combination of those two things. Not all districts do that. We definitely do that because we're number 2 in the state in middle school acceleration. So when you look at these numbers as a whole, it's just how the state provides that assessment, which gives us the most information on how to prepare students moving forward. So you'll see significant improvement both at our level as well as the state.
Yeah, so all of those elements remain the same for the ELA as well. In terms of the testing, and we're not going to capture all of the students. There are still a percentage of students who have tested out. Yes, Ms. Becerra.
You are correct in the analysis that everything holds true for every content area. The difference is that the ELA standards are the same all the way through kindergarten through 12th grade. With math, every grade band teaches different concepts throughout math. So if you may be getting concepts in math in 6th grade that you've never been exposed to before, and if you're testing on it in 6th grade in the middle of the year, you might not have even been taught it yet.
Right.
So the difference is ELA standards are the same kindergarten through 12th grade. They just continually increase in depth and rigor.
That's probably why students in Europe don't struggle as much, because they have a similar, I don't even know how to explain, they have a similar process or program where they don't have, like we have, algebra and math and whatever it is. They actually include it all in one, and then they progress their students like we do with ELA. It's like one set of standards for K through 12 versus, each grade or each subject in math. I think maybe that's why they do better in those areas, because I think that's what they do. So with math, I've mentioned this before, I'm going to mention it again. I think that we have so we have so many kids. I mean, it was it was a concern for my son, I've mentioned this before, where spiral math curriculum just wasn't good because the pages were so busy and so complicated and so overwhelming with so many other things, because then you're reviewing, chapters before, and you're not actually mastering the current lesson before them. And mastery learning does the opposite. Mastery learning allows them to master an item, and then you do some review. I'm wondering if for our lowest 25 percentile, or for that lowest group to close the gap, if we were to invest in some curriculum that was mastery-based, provide that to our lowest when needed or as needed, and then close that gap and then wean them back into the curriculum that everybody else is using, the spiral one. I'm wondering if some sort of thing there might help increase our numbers also. And of course, I'm just kind of throwing that out there because I've seen it work, and I know that it helps some kids, because obviously math is so complicated, and not everyone learns it the same way. So I think we need to be a little bit nimble in how we are, teaching math to our kids. Dr. Moore, you said on this slide that the math data does not include all students. Could we get something similar to this that would include all students? Maybe add another bottom, I don't know, another thing that shows how many students have actually tested out?
Yeah, that's easy enough.
Okay. I'm going to say partnering with our charters is 100% the right thing to do. I haven't heard that before. I love that you guys did that, and I'm so grateful. I'm hopeful that their response, obviously, if they all responded well, I mean, it's something that they're looking forward to. So I just love that. I really do. So that's a good thing to do. That might be something to add to the next round of strategic planning when reaching out to community. It's also reaching out to our other schools in our area as well. Because you're right. If we're sharing it with people outside of our county, why aren't we sharing it with our neighbors? The good things that are happening. The college and career acceleration, I have heard from about 4 parents, 4 families within the last week. Ms. Becerra, I think you're going to like this. Within the last week that they received a letter or an email or whatever, asking them to sign up, saying that their child is eligible for dual enrollment. And I was like, yay! So there needs to be follow-up, because they're like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, you got to follow up, so I think there needs to be some follow-up with that. But the fact that there are some parents who are now considering that because it was an initiative from the school, I think it adds to that slide on college and career acceleration, and I'm happy to hear that we are now moving in that direction. And I think that's all I have.
Okay. So, did you have anything? No. Okay. A couple things that you mentioned, screen time versus book time. We learned a little bit at FAU going down, seeing that school, about how much screen time, and then we heard that superintendent wants to decrease the amount of screen time. It wears on kids' eyes. It's I don't know, I like books. So I'm glad to hear you say that. The employee surveys, I think, is a great idea to have them more often, because before you came in, that was one of the things we were looking for in a superintendent, is somebody that would increase morale. So I'm sure the info flowing down is great, but the info flowing up is important. So I think that's great. When are we going to have phase 2 of the Jimmy Graves complex kind of underway? I know they're fundraising for that, correct?
So we have in fact completed phase 1, and it's just kind of organizing ourselves to determine, A, what the priorities are for phase 2, what that looks like. So we are just now in that conversation of kind of defining, A, priorities, and B, when would be the best time to do it based on the cost of things right now. So the Jimmy Graves, when we started that project, was 3.7, and just the increase in cost
I'm
was
sure.
a major piece of delay, because we had to go out and get more money to cover the cost of it.
Right, I mean, we talked about like bricks and all that, you know, people
Yep.
putting
Yep.
their names on bricks, whatever it takes. I don't know if there could be a sign that puts up, you know, phase 2 in the future, because people are asking a lot about why can't they walk on the track? And I think if they knew that a trail was coming in the near future, hopefully near future, that would alleviate some of that distension, because they are, why is this only for the high school students when it's our tax dollar? So, but our tax dollars only go for students in the schools when they're in the schools. So that's an easy argument for me to make. But I think it helps with communication. Also, people might be more willing to donate towards it if they know what the project is that we're looking at. Open house, the Rosewood open house was awesome. The comments I heard when I was there were the kids were super excited about the newness of the campus compared to their old school, but also how big it was and all the beauty. The people that were telling the kids about the playground, I corrected them if that's okay. They were telling the kids the playgrounds have to be uprooted and moved over there, and I believe they're going to get new playgrounds, correct? Yeah, and so they were all excited about that too. So it was nothing but positive is what I heard. I didn't hear any dissension, which was really nice, because I went around and kind of met with different people, different families, and said, you know, what do you think, what do you think? And they were overwhelmingly positive. So I'm excited that you're going to do that for Osceola as well. I don't think everybody thinks about all the things that have to take place when we move all these campuses. You know, I got thinking about library books and furniture and teacher stuff, the playgrounds being built, the security that has to change depending on the age of the children. Somebody asked me last night about the bathrooms for kindergartners and first graders, and how's that going to work at Oslo's campus. And I think you have a plan for that, so I told him a little bit about what I thought the plan was. I hope I was correct. Going back to your report, yeah, SMART goals are important. I know that if you keep saying the same words over and over again, though, it's not going to look like a fancy report. It's going to look like regurgitated information over and over again. So the SMART goals are the ones that matter with the achievement. And for you to use those words for, you know, representative, whatever, is it measurable? Is it something that's measurable? And if it is, then I can understand why you use those words. But yeah, the measured words are the ones that matter in the end. And then partnering with charters, awesome. I know you've done that in the past with safety and security. So I appreciate that partnering, offering things like this. That's important. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. Madam Chair, the next item B is the reviewing the approval to participate in the Florida Educator Health Trust. So as we've probably been discussing for about a year and a lot more frequently lately, and for a long time, we've talked about what are the opportunities to ever get into something where we can risk share with some other government agency, entity, school district. How can we share the risk as our population of teachers and staff is not as large as it was in the past? That risk sharing becomes more and more important. So actually, 2009, there was a program started called FSHIP under the Florida School Board Association. It never took off because that program required you to be on the same plan, have the same benefits, have the same premiums. And as you know, across 67 school districts, each district having 2 to 3 different unions and different negotiating and different plans and different member needs, it just never really took off. Well, last March, actually, a year ago today, a year ago the 21st, so that's next week, the Florida Association of School District Superintendents, FADS, was able to establish a health trust fleet. It is still using the FSBIT's accounting system, so it's using the Florida School Board Health Trust accounting system. It's using Avail Analytics, Alliant for actuarial services, and FADS for its administrative services. There's an executive director. And what Fleet basically does is gives the 67 school districts the opportunity to join the trust. The board of trustees becomes each superintendent or designee of that district who joins. Currently, last year there were 3 founding members. As of today, there are 17 members in the trust, with several districts behind that, such as we, that are in the process of going through joining. So what you'll see on the action agenda this evening that we'll discuss again is a participation agreement. That allows the current board of trustees, the 17 school superintendents, which includes Brevard, Collier, Polk, so some much larger districts now, to vote to add Indian River School Board to that trust. What that then does is, instead of our 1,300 active lives here in our plan, it joins us with over 44,000 lives. So as we bid out things such as pharmacy, any commodity in our health insurance plan, Fleet will help us through that volume bidding. Districts, every district that has joined so far has seen savings over even the membership fees into Fleet, and we'll talk about those. On the pharmacy side alone, they're seeing a 6 to 12% savings by bidding it out through that volume bidding. Our pharmacy spends about $12 million a year, so 10% is $1.2 million. The Fleet fees we'll discuss in a little bit are around $375,000 a year. On top of that, what Fleet does is it gives us the ability to do a risk share on our stop-loss insurance. So our claims, which you saw 10 years ago, we had a really, really bad year that we had to come out of, and this last year and a half, we've had the same thing. What it does is pools those 17 districts together, so if any one district is having a bad year on claims, it's offset by the districts that are not. And through Fleet, we have the ability to actually join into their own stop-loss company. So the trust itself is managing the stop-loss. Unlike our policy now, if our stop-loss provider, if we don't have a lot of high claims in a year, they keep those dividends. They don't come back. In Fleet, in a year where there are dividends, those come back to the districts because it is established by the school districts for the school districts. So the action that is on tonight's agenda is to approve the participation agreement to allow the superintendent and/or designee, which in most districts are the CFO, to fulfill whatever procedural things need to be done to become a member, and then to give the purchase authority to the superintendent to engage in the services. The fee for our size district is $22.25 per member per month, not counting retirees or the dependents on the plan. So we have roughly 1,400 active members on our plan that are employees. So roughly $31,000, $32,000 a month. That varies, based on our membership on any given day. We would look to begin the actual membership fees on April 1st, so that by this summer we can leverage Fleet to help us bid out our stop loss at the lowest possible rate, then help us start on some plan design, and right away start bidding out our pharmacy so that we can leverage any volume power, savings, and benefits of Fleet prior to our August open enrollment. Then the data already shows 7 to 15% reduced cost going from fully to self-insured. We're already self-insured. Their data is showing and predicting that in a 3 to 5 year period in Fleet, based on the analytics they have of the 17 districts, an additional 7 to 13% savings from the volume pricing and benefits of being in Fleet. So that item will be coming before you this evening for a vote so that we can join in that trust and begin paying April 1st so that we can leverage their services prior to the summer.
So I wanted to say, I know when I come back from FSBA events, you kind of worry because I bring up stuff that I see at the conferences. And I think it was 2 years ago, I brought up Fleet to you. And at the time, there were only a few, maybe 3 districts. And so you looked into it, but you said it wasn't feasible. I appreciate the fact that now that this is coming back, we're in a place where it's going to be feasible. So how many districts, though, are self-insured, so the board members know that?
I'm not sure how many districts across the state are self-insured.
No, the ones that are in this, 17.
So you must be
That's what I-
self-insured to enter fleet.
That's what I wanted you to say.
So two different things between the participation agreement and actually, there are some districts that are fully insured that are joining fleet. There is a one-time fee, $10,000. That gets you all their services. They're gonna go through your contracts and they're gonna help you become self-insured if you're not. So those districts will probably take a year to make it through a process of shifting. You have to have enough reserves for your safe harbor, all those Chapter 112 requirements of being self-insured. They will help those districts meet it. So I know there are several fully insured districts that are bringing participation agreements forward in the next month or two with fleet that they'll then spend a year. We are ahead of that. We already are self-insured. And to get the benefits of the stop loss program, there's 24 criteria you must meet. One of the biggest hurdles that districts have are a wellness program. We meet that day one because we already have an on-site wellness clinic through Proactive. So we have a lot of the infrastructure already in place to be able to get into the stop loss risk sharing much sooner than a fully insured district would have to wait for.
Okay, board members? Yes.
Yes. So thank you for doing this research. I'm glad that we went in this direction. I still have some reservations because obviously there's a lot that we still don't know. Can you talk a little bit about where our dental and vision and some of the other benefits that our members receive or can opt into, where does that fall in this whole, under the umbrella of fleet?
Good question.
If anything.
So fleet currently focuses and works on your health and pharmacy program, which includes your stop-loss insurance, your medical plans, and your pharmacy spend. So the other plans are what people often call cafeteria plans or optional plans or other benefits. Those, by being self-insured, that's completely within our control. I will tell you that outside fleet, just joining fleet, doesn't take away any of our authority or autonomy as a self-insured district. So we are actually meeting with many, many vendors at the same time of researching fleet to look at other economical ways and cost-effective ways to provide those services. But those services don't have to change. They aren't offered by fleet. That's completely up to us as a self-insured district.
Okay, thank you for that. And can you also talk a little bit about our commitment to fleet if we decide to vote this through this evening, and let's say after fleet has done all of their analysis of our district and comes back and says, you know what, we're recommending an increase of $2,000 a month for all of your employees, and we look at the previous recommendation under, a month and a half ago that was presented to us, and say, no, we don't want that. That's way too much. That one, the original recommendations were better for us. What happens at that point?
So I'm going to separate the two things and just talk about our commitment to fleet. Our commitment to fleet is 30 days or less. It's wherever you are in the month. So if you've engaged for the month and you've got the services, and at the end of that month, hey, this just isn't work out, you just withdraw from the trust. There's no fees, there's no opt-out, there's no documents. You just alert the Board of Trustees that you are coming off that board. Separately, I just want to be clear that fleet will do the same actuarial services similar to Aon. They're going to run our numbers, but their recommendations will solely be based on the services and plans that we create as a self-insured district, and they'll help us come up with those plans. If we don't like what they're presenting, we're going to tell them different ways of plan designs or different things that we can offer. So as I said, we're meeting with a lot of vendors to still have opportunities to do direct contracting with vendors to maybe reduce some of our billing through a provider. We could directly contract with a provider. That's what we do for our on-site clinic. We're not playing Florida Blue for any type of insurance there. It's a direct pay. So we are still looking at many options that Fleet will help us integrate into those plan designs.
Okay, so that's good to know that we haven't dropped the effort in kind of going through all of our options, what other things we can bring to the table to help better this
Absolutely.
situation. Okay,
Fleet will just help us with guidance and actuarial services that are transparent and on a per member, per month, flat fee, no commissions, you know what the fee is.
okay. And Fleet, again, is nonprofit.
It's
Right?
a health trust.
It's a health trust. And so the difference between Fleet and Aon is that Aon is for-profit. Correct.
Aon, Gallagher, you name them, a broker model, they're an insurance broker, and it's a for-profit model. So whatever they have negotiated with particular vendors for retention fees or commissions or things, that's part of a brokered model, yes.
Yes, thank you. And then the other question that I have is regarding the audit of some insurance fraud, if there is or has been any. It was something that I mentioned at the very first time that you presented on this in February, I believe. And so I know that you said that we were investigating. Have we investigated? Where are we in that investigation? Can you speak to any of that
I
as
don't
of
have
now?
final results, but we do have a provider who are going through, especially the large claims first, and analyzing those claims and ensuring that we got everything we should have got for the claim. It was filed properly. They only get paid if they find something, so that process is happening.
Okay.
It's not finalized.
All right, and then lastly, and I know the answer to this, I just want to be transparent for people watching and wanting to know. What can you speak to, if anything, regarding the increases to what our employees may receive, may see after all of this regarding their insurance premiums?
So I want to be very clear and separate two different things. One is, what is the health insurance expected increase in expenditures? Take employee out, take district out, take general fund out. Based on the data we have and Aon's actuarial services, that's $7.1 million expected increase in expenditures. You'll need to bring in that much more premium or dollars to generate that. And that's based on our current plan designs and our most current 2 years of experiences. Anything we do to offset plan design changes, copay changes, deductible changes, maybe a direct contract with someone who reduces our healthcare expenditures for large surgeries. Any of those things that can offset expenditures would help reduce the cost to the fund. The cost to the fund right now is estimated to be $7.1 million over a year. Those change every month as we learn how the claims, if they're going up or going down, are they consistently going up, are they consistently going down? What the expenditures of the fund will be next year, we'll never know that till the end of the year. But if there's any new prediction of what that might be, we would know that over the summer. As we've gone through and let's say we bid out the pharmacy. And let's just say we experience what other districts experienced, 6 to 14% decrease on pharmacy. And we say, do it, Fleet. 10% is $1.2 million savings on pharmacy. Mm-hmm. We could take the 7.1, deduct 1.2, and rerun the numbers. And so what the ultimate increase to the employee will be has a lot of factors into it that we're trying to mitigate as many of those as possible before August.
And that's the biggest concern for me. I don't want to hurt employees. And I know that the quandary is we have a need, right? We have a need to be able to cover our bills that are coming in. I get it. But at the same time, I don't want to hurt our employees. So yeah, thank you for this. Thank you for this information.
Okay, anyone else? Oh, Dr. Jones.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Very good information. I sat in on a couple of those meetings. I learned a lot. I just listened. Committee had very, very good questions. So, you know, what I'm hearing, what I'm understanding is that after maybe a year or two, we could have a 7 to 13% just in general with savings. And then prescription on top of that could be 6 to 14%. I mean, that's what we're thinking. And obviously, we have several more districts that are now part of Fleet. Can you just give a specific, or when you talk about the, I guess, risk share stop loss, how would Fleet help us there, or what would be that? How would you explain that?
So I'll try in the most simple terms possible. Under a traditional stop loss model, you're buying down your loss like your hurricane insurance. If you don't have any money in the bank and you're like, I don't want to put anything out if a hurricane hits, they're going to charge you an astronomical, you probably can't even get a zero deductible hurricane policy in Florida, astronomical monthly price. If you say, I've got a $5,000 savings that I've put aside for a rainy day, I want a $5,000, then your monthly premium for the hurricane is going to be less. If you tell them, I've got $50,000 saved away, this is my life savings, in an emergency I could use that $50,000, your hurricane monthly premium is going to be much, much lower. Stop loss, the same thing. We choose to stop our loss at $250,000, and it's very strategic. Every year we look at that to get an ROI based on claims and stop. When do we pay enough that we're not breaking the fund? So every claim hits $250. The employee is probably paid $3,500, $5,000, whatever their deductibles or copays. They paid the beginning, and then at $250 we have a vendor that kicks in, a company, a stop loss company. What Fleet offers is they will own a stop loss captive. A captive is the trust owning its own stop loss company, okay? So the fees and the member fees for stop loss go into that pot. And they might set, for example, $100,000. So now our responsibility is reduced down to $100,000. At $100,000, everybody kicks in, all the district members, from maybe $100,000 to $700,000. And that's, one district has a bad year, one district has a good year, one district has a bad, and so it levels that off across 44,000 lives, and all of our fees help do that. At $700,000, we could make a decision as a district. We could look at our history and say, we've never had a claim over $700,000. And we've got $23 million in the bank in the health insurance fund. We don't need any extra stop loss. Or we might look and say, you know what, we had $3 million claims, so that's $300,000 over the 700 on 3, that's $900,000. We could go out to a commercial vendor and say, what's the price for a $700,000 stop loss? It might be $150,000 because it's the premium so high. So it gives us the ability to dramatically reduce our stop loss premiums, and in that middle area, whatever numbers they set, for all the districts to share that risk across it so the volatility doesn't hit any one district in any one year.
Got it, thank you. And what I saw, I think, at the meeting is our teachers, our support staff working together, because it's going to take a few things to get this working. We're going to probably have to revise some plans, may not be able to have that top one anymore. You know, work with all of our employees on that, and you know, do our best to present it, you know, during open enrollment in August. And again, thank you to the superintendent, district staff, principals for basically not spending anything unless it's an emergency. You said last time, you know, last 4 months we've had a high number of claims, and of that number of claims, many of them were very high as far as costs and so forth, and sometimes that will hit us, and I understand that, but I think it's going to take a lot of little things making this work, and I'm glad you're looking at Fleet. Thank you.
Mr. Dyer?
First, I continue to say you do a terrific job of explaining a very complex negotiation and a complex area to deal in. I think we have to start by recognizing that we pay 30 to 40% more than our surrounding counties for the board or the district share of health insurance. So we've found ourselves in kind of a double predicament. We're paying 30% or 40% more than any other counties around us, and we have huge premiums coming. I think that fleet is a great idea. 44,000 lives versus 1,400 is definitely going to get you a much better deal. I think that everywhere we'll see it, we'll see savings. Being self-insured is terrific, and having brokers, but I can guarantee you that the broker fees that we pay versus what the brokers actually receive is probably different than what we think. I would, and that was the question, the essence of the question. The incentives or rebates that the brokers are getting, we will now see, that's why we're getting the negotiated fees a lot less, because we're paying more than we think for these services is, I think, part of the deal. So I think it's a good thing all around. Congratulations on going out and working on this. I think it's going to be a good thing for the district, but as Peggy just said, or Dr. Jones, we have to continue to look at the plan, because we can't do a champagne plan on a beer budget, or maybe it's a soft drink budget now from what's happening to us. So anyway.
Dr. Poskett? Okay. Yeah, I'm going to speak and then I'll call on you again. Stop loss commission. So it would be interesting to see that would be versus Aon price on a table, maybe, when you get all this information to us, as build a table and say, this is what it would cost if we continue what we're doing and go with Aon, but each thing separate. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And then I'd like to know what the history of the fleet stop loss amounts are. Because you said maybe it could be 100,000, but it could maybe be 750,000.
Well, what I mean is, they are establishing that stop loss captive currently. They have 17 school districts. Mm-hmm. 7 of those 17 school districts already meet the 24 requirements. Chapter 112, there's several statutory requirements. You have to make sure every one of your dependents are eligible. There's steps that you must do to be in the stop loss captive. So this summer, 7 of those 17 districts will join in that risk share because they're ready. We will come on, they'll evaluate our 24 things. Do you have a wellness program? Oh, we have a wellness center, check. Are you financially solvent? They're gonna look not just the health fund, but our entire general fund. They're gonna say, yes, you're financially solvent. And as they go down, the quicker you meet those 24 requirements, the quicker you can get into the risk sharing portion of it. So this summer, what they're gonna do is apply the volume power of purchasing to help us get our commercial stop loss down. We won't be in the risk share day one. They're going to apply pressure, and everywhere they've gone, they have been able to negotiate better prices than the district was able to do on their own.
Okay.
So that's step one. Step two will be, hopefully by next year, we'll be in the risk sharing pool, because I know we'll meet those 24 criteria quickly.
So they won't look at all of our high claims this year and boot us out for that reason. Okay. On your fee
Just
structure.
remembering, this is a trust by school districts for school districts
right.
for the purpose of saving health insurance dollars. So there's no incentive to kick anybody out. The incentive is to right-size their program to get you in.
Okay. So on your fee structure, you said that that would be the fee structure, but then you said there are no commissions, but at the bottom it says stop loss commission when applicable.
So that's if you join that stop loss risk-sharing pool and everybody's putting into the stop loss.
Okay. And then it says there's no charge for dependents.
So their monthly fee, the $22.25 per month per member, does not include retirees and it does not include dependents. So we might have 2,800 people on our plan getting health insurance. Their fee is only charging us on the 1,400 employees,
Wow.
active employees that we have.
That's very good. Thank you. Would you like to speak?
Yeah, I just had a question, because I just noticed that on the bottom of the item, one of the backup items that's titled Agenda Item, all the way on the bottom, you have the signatures from 5 boards, DeSoto, Hendry, Brevard, Polk, Hardy. Is this going to be edited for our district, or is this just a sample? What is this item here?
So as I recall, this is a trust. Superintendents become the board of trustees. That board of trustees then elects a board, a treasurer, a chair, and that board takes action. So that's showing the latest trust in which some of those superintendents were on the board of trustees, and they signed, whatever the trust agreement is.
Okay.
Our signature will only be on our participation
Okay.
agreement.
Okay, but still, the entirety of this first restatement, which is what it's titled, Florida Educator Health Trust Agreement and Declaration of Trust, that still pertains to us, even though they have their own board.
Well, that is the trust we're joining, and
Yeah.
those were the people that were on the
On it.
board that signed
Got
off
it.
on that trust agreement.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted
Yeah.
to make sure
No,
that we weren't.
The first time I saw that, I had the same question.
Okay, thank you.
So one of the people I had heard about this and just bragged about it so much was a Brevard school board member who chairs the Central Coalition. And you're welcome to attend those meetings. They're on Mondays, unfortunately. But they're at 10:30, I believe, once a month. And they were going to do the fleet presentation last month, and I know you had 2 employees that were going to listen, but the gentleman that was going to present had technical difficulties. So I believe it's this month that they're going to.
Yes,
And if it wasn't this past Monday, it's going to be next Monday.
yes.
So anybody can listen to that. Okay.
Good afternoon through the chair. As briefed with board members during individual board briefings, I have 2 items to share with you today. The first of those 2 items is the Somerset Academy application for 2 charter schools within our community. The first one is West Vero Elementary, and the second one is West Vero Middle. Based on Florida Statute 1002.33 and our board policy 9800, once we receive an application, we have 90 days to bring to the board a recommendation. So this was a very, very fast process and a review. Somerset submitted January 9th their application to open these 2 charter schools, which then prompted us to create the application review committee. So a big shout out and a big thank you to Miss Ann Bieber. She is our charter school liaison. She led this committee work, and also to all of my colleagues who gave up very valuable and precious time to be part of this committee. The committee's recommendation is to approve of both the West Vero Elementary and the West Vero Middle charter school process. This is a charter operation that is designated as high performing and under Florida statute. They are entitled to some very specific flexibilities. They've earned a national recognition, and furthermore, if a school board denies their application, we must provide written reasons within 10 calendar days. So after very thorough and diligent and careful review of the application process and a meeting with the organization, we are recommending approval for this project.
Okay, board members? Yes.
Ms. Becerra, were they offering transportation?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I'm on page, if it has a number, it does not. That's one thing that drives me nuts, is when we have these and we have no numbers. It says concerns and additional questions, and it says they stated in their recruitment plan they're going to work with the local YMCA, but we don't have one. The facility does not provide for a self-contained room for IEP students. This is a concern I have, is that oftentimes charter schools don't think about children with disabilities or children with needs. I'm glad to hear about transportation. I know when Imagine started, I was part of their team to help write their curriculum. And one of the things that impressed me about them was they were going to have transportation to Gifford, and that never happened. So what happens when we approve something and they make a statement and it doesn't happen?
Right.
For example, that. What happens? Because the third item of concern is a process for reviewing applications for African-American students based on the DSEG order.
So, thank you for pointing that out. The areas that were concerns and additional questions came out of the original meeting that we had with the Somerset folks. They went back and they revised their application to write the things that were noted concerns.
So they're going to provide an IEP room or a room for students with IEPs?
They will be providing IEP services.
They're going to start a YMCA?
No, that was one of the things that, and that's how critical our team was of this application process. Like, they read it really literally from beginning to end and found things in there that, you know, at first glance would be very difficult to find. So because this is a replication application, there were some things in Somerset's application that carried over from other applications across the state. So they did go back and they did make the corrections after our meeting with
So
them.
I found the page number, it's page 6.
Yes.
So what happens if they say something in their charter and their agreement with the district and they don't follow through with it?
The district, as the district sponsor, does everything in our power to make sure that they follow the agreement that was approved. And then they do get to a point that their renewal of their application would be subject to the board's denial.
In the other situation, I know the charter got changed afterwards. So is that possible for them to do still?
Not once it's been submitted to you for the application, unless it's
changed.
started all over.
Okay, so that's changed.
Correct.
All right. Anybody else? Oh, Dr. Jones?
Did they say why that area, I mean, Point West, as far as number of students, there'd have to be a lot of transportation getting them in. I mean, I know, did they say why that area?
I believe they have a commitment with a person, a landowner in that area.
Oh.
This was a charter application that was approved by this, but not this board, but a board back in 2015 or 16, I believe.
17, 18.
17, 18, and it was for the same location because of the same agreement that they have for the land. But at this point, that original application lapsed, and this is their new submission.
And I was on that committee, and I said no because they did not have transportation. I'm just concerned about the transportation and doing what they say they're going to say, but that's my opinion.
Thank you.
I do know some, at the time that was happening, I do know there were some residents who were concerned about lack of sidewalks because
Lack
of
of
the
what? I'm
location.
sorry. I didn't
Lack of sidewalks
Okay.
because of where the location is. Is it the same exact location that they were putting forward before?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay. My second item, it is a presentation. There we go. So as you're all aware, we just went through the second phase of the instructional materials adoption for Pelican Island Classical Magnet. This would take us through grades 2 through 8. Last year, we adopted grades K and 1. I was very excited with this process. We had, not often when you advertise an instructional materials adoption do you get people knocking down the door to want to join. It's very, very exhilarating work. But we had 20 folks who participated in this, 3 residents, 2 parents, 2 administrators, a coach, and 12 teachers. So with that, I'll go through. This looks very familiar to you from the past adoption, where we define what the classical school is based on House Bill 1285. This is also a very familiar slide. It will take you through the phases of our exploration all the way through the initial board authorization to the public hearing for the attendance zones and boundaries. Our actual timeline started January 26th. We did a call for the committee meeting, or committee members. January 30th, the committee was formed. We had our first committee meeting on February 3rd. During that committee meeting, what we've done differently this time in these last 2 adoptions is we have our committee members do some upfront logistical work ahead of time, so we do not spread this out over 3 and 4 meetings for them to sit and watch a video. So they did all of their prerequisite work before coming February 3rd, and then they signed their attestation forms that they've done that. The 20-day calendar review has expired. That was February 17th through March 9th. The notice of public hearing went out March 9th. We are here today, March 16th, for the workshop, and tonight for the board meeting. Members of the community will still have 30 days to contest these materials or review them, ask questions of them, and that will take us through a final approval process, pending no petitions. So as I mentioned, the members of the committee, they went through these upfront trainings prior to the February 3rd meeting. They did their sunshine training, their Florida Department of Education Library media training, and then actually the presentation of the materials happened during this February 3rd meeting. They elected the chair, they overviewed the classical timeline, they reviewed the rubrics, and then they went through and did their review of the materials and rated those materials. These were the materials that were reviewed. Many of these materials align to the K and 1 adoption, so that there would be a continuum of materials for our students. We reviewed Great Books paired with Shirley Grammar and Core Knowledge Amplify. For math 2 through 6, we reviewed Singapore math at the primary level and Savvis and Vision. Singapore math for 7th and 8th grade changes to what's called dimensions. We reviewed that as well, and McGraw-Hill. Social Studies, Story of the World, Peace Hill Press, and Gallup-Haid, Florida, Social Studies for 2nd through 5th grade, and then Social Studies 6th through 8th grade, Story of the World again, and our National Geographic Cengage. The rank order of those materials is here. For English language arts, the Great Books paired with the Shirley Grammar was recommended as the top choice all the way through 8th grade, so that is kindergarten through 8th grade. The same is true for both the Singapore Primary and the Singapore Dimensions. That would be a K through 8th grade continuum. Story of the World for 2 through 5 was the recommended first choice for our elementary social studies curriculum. The Nat Geographic for 6 through 8 was the recommendation of the committee members for middle school social studies. And this is where I give you the floor and take any questions.
Questions? Go ahead.
So thank you for this. I attended the adoption on the review days, and the review days, not the adoption. And it was really nicely attended, and everyone was engaged and all the stuff. My only concern is the social studies. I've shared that with you because National Geographic is not a classical curriculum. I understand where we are with that, and that we're trying to find a curriculum that best aligns with our standards to prepare the students for the civics exam. But that's my only reservation there. It's a big reservation for me. Obviously, I've pushed, classical schools should have fully classical education, and this is the worry in the public education system, is that oftentimes we are limited because of so many of the regulations that we have to essentially abide by. But at some point, I really hope, and this could probably continue to be one of our legislative items, is to have way more autonomy when it comes to classical schools and classical education, so that we don't find ourselves in this situation. The other thing I was going to ask, if maybe you can talk a little bit about where we are in this arena, where we are with debate. I know you and I talked about it, but to have that, because classical, there's a huge component to classical education that has to deal with debate. And so if you can kind of explain where that fits in this entire picture.
Yes, thank you for that question. We do participate in the Florida Civics Debate program sponsored by the DOE. We already currently do that in our middle schools. We will do that as well in our K-8 middle schools, or K-8s, along with Pelican Island Classical. And I know in our conversation there was a a request and also a goal for us to add debate at earlier grade levels so that it doesn't just become a one and done in a middle school environment. And that is certainly something that I see as a supplemental additional opportunity, especially for Pelican Island Classical, since debate and Socratic seminar, those type of environments and instructional strategies are very integral in this environment.
Couldn't have said it better. Thank you. I look forward to that.
Anyone else? One of the things that we saw at the FAU Lab School was a mock jury room. And
I've seen that.
yeah, and it was great because having a son that's an attorney who argued with me all his life, I knew he had that skill long ago. But the debate opportunity of how to debate correctly and when it's appropriate and what to say, I think is critical for any child. That's just part of learning how to get your way in life, right? Carefully. So I would love to see it in early grades. Love to see it across the board, debate teams constantly working with each other from school to school. That would be ideal.
Great, thank you.
Anybody else?
Just thank you to the committee. I did not get to one of these sessions, but I was one a few months ago with math, and I learned quite a bit there. I just want to say very appreciative of that. And as far as regulations and flexibility, when I met with Senator Grahl last year, I brought with me from Dr. Moore just some ideas that we could have for flexibility as a high-performing district. And I hope they continue to look at that because we're accountable for everything from learning and fiscal responsibility. I think we need some more flexibility in other areas. So thank you to the committee.
Yes, thank you to the committee, because I know that's a lot of unsung hero-ness, so we
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
Good afternoon. Great. Good afternoon through the chair. I have 4 items to discuss today. The first is the district transportation agreements. This is with the Boys and Girls Club of Indian River County and the charter schools. That includes St. Peter's Academy, North County Charter, Indian River Charter High School, and Imagine. So they're pretty straightforward. All the insurance has been checked, gone through the legal routes. Pretty straightforward items.
Anybody? We're good?
Okay. The next item is the Sebastian River High School automotive program purchases. This is the CAP grant fund, so they had some remaining funds, and this, since it is over $50,000, is coming to you for approval. They purchased 3 console labs, and those are, if you came to the school choice fair, you would have seen the car that they use to work on to practice. Those are the console labs, and then 2 Mohawk scissor lifts, so that they're using the rest of the money for the grant. So we're very happy and excited about that, and so are the students. The next item I have is the Vero Beach High School annual. They go somewhere different all the time, but they always have a spring break baseball tournament. This year they're traveling to Charleston, South Carolina. They're leaving Sunday, March 29th. They're playing games Monday through Wednesday. They will be checking out of the hotel on Thursday, April 2nd to come back home. Players, coaches, everyone's traveling together. They've rented vans. The Booster Club is paying for all the meals. They are going to tour historical sites of Charleston and go on a local trolley tour as well while they're there. So there will be 28 people going, which includes players and coaches. So they're very excited about it.
Just thank
Dr.
you.
Jones?
I know Coach Rahal said they're doing a couple educational things. And then Sebastian and Vero play in baseball tomorrow at 6 at Vero. So you can see both teams at once.
Oh, the game is on tomorrow. Okay.
So can I ask a
go ahead.
question about
Sure.
the automotive going back?
Oh, yeah.
I ran into a representative from Breeze Airlines when I was at a function.
Okay.
And they have a real desire to have us do aviation work as far as on engines and things like that. That is something that's lacking in CTE programs across the Treasure Coast. I know we have pilots, we have the drone program, we have the piloting program, but we do not have this part. It's nice that we have kids learning how to work on cars because we have a lot of cars, but we also have a lot of airplanes. And being near the space industry, I think it would be important for us to look into this. I'm sure it would be very costly. It would probably require a grant, but Breeze is interested in speaking with us about it.
I was going to say, I thought Ann Bieber was in the room, but I will make sure to talk to her about that. That's a great idea. The last item that I have, and I do have a short presentation, is the Code of Student Conduct, just the revisions. And this, of course, isn't every single revision, but the main items. The first one is, we were always talking about being safe and secure with the ID badges. That was a great thing that we did 2 years ago by putting it in the Code of Conduct. So this first section is the dress code section. We put it in the dress code section. We still have language in the dress code section about it, but we did also add it in the safety section. So you can see that entire page. It's much more in-depth than it has been in the past as far as ID badges goes, and explains thoroughly what's going to happen, the first offense, second offense, et cetera. It also gives information about the first one's free and different things schools are doing when kids misplace them or having an extra for, schools have been great, principals have been great doing individual incidents of, students that maybe lose a lot, printing another one and having it in the office so they come and pick it up. So we're very happy about that.
Can I ask a question
Yeah.
about that?
Sure.
The lanyard, or the lanyards are really, really long for kindergartners and first graders.
Okay.
It's becoming a problem. I'm not sure if they give away when they're on the equipment or whatever,
They're the breakaway.
breakaway. But have we looked into magnets or something like that?
I will
Because
talk to the,
pins, I know
The
not to
lanyard
do
people?
because that's a weapon, but a magnet might be a possibility. I'm just thinking that for safety for young children.
I will talk to Carrie Wall and Jaime about that. That's a
Okay.
good idea.
Thank you.
The next item is in the dress code section. We've never put unified dress information in the code of conduct. So all the elementaries are in unified dress and some of the middle schools are in unified dress. So this is just an addition to further explain those schools that have a unified dress, which is voted on by their SAC committees, or the district with all the elementaries. What also must you do for dress code besides the colored shirt, et cetera? So we added that section to the dress code. And as Doc Jones mentioned, there's a lot of legislation going on that we're waiting to hear about attendance, but we are doing a huge push for why it's so crucial to the success, academic success of our students. 95% is really where we want everyone to be, and we are currently struggling to get that, so we're putting a full-out alert to all schools to really pay attention to that. We're going back to the, and this is not about the code of conduct per se, but going back to the, when you miss a class, your parent's going to get a phone call letting you know that you were not there. But we purposely looked around the state at other districts and what they're doing for the cumulative excused absent limit. And most, I'm going to say most districts, but a lot of districts have a 10-day per year. So we followed that, but we did it 5 per semester because we really want to be proactive and staying on top of it to provide, not necessarily consequences, but interventions. So there's new language about that. And then for that chronic attendance, those students with some chronic attendance issues, we did add a section for corrective interventions, really laying it out, being very transparent with parents and students of, what's going to happen when you choose not to come and, you're just tired that morning. You go, Mom, can I stay home? No, we need you in school. We need you there learning. So we have a student success plan, but we did put some other things in place. We've for years had for athletics a 90% attendance. Yep. It is in there as well, but you may be affected depending on your chronic absenteeism, extracurricular activities. We just want students and parents to understand you need to come to school every day, unless you're sick. So the other item of note is we have seen an increase with the smart glasses or meta glasses, however, they're called different things, but I think a lot of students got them at Christmas. And so we have seen it at school, and we've sent out some preliminary ways that principals can deal with that at this time, but we need to change it in the code of conduct. So under the wireless communication devices, we added, it's this third line from the bottom, smart glasses, and we will also address that in our upcoming policy review of definitions under wireless communication devices. We're going to add the smart glasses. So we're have that very well. I'm just adding the AI. We've had that in there. We do have a board policy that covers artificial intelligence. We have a fabulous committee task force that is working on many things having to do with AI, and That policy 7540.08 is actually up for revision. I believe that the committee is wanting to look that over. So how does that relate to the code of conduct? We have listed the policy, any revisions upcoming, that we don't know what month they will hit. Anything that we put in the policy students will have to be accountable for, however that language changes. So you can see we added anything in red is new. The rest we've already had in the responsible use and all of those categories. So we're almost done. Transportation. So last fall, with our revisions of policies, we revised 5600, which is student discipline. And the new language states that principals will support the authority of bus drivers and teachers. So we worked with Ms. Ida Lett to add a lot of things that were in the Transportation Parent Handbook into the Code of Conduct, again, for transparency. So expectations for bus stop, bus arrival, what do you do on the bus, exiting the bus, safety rules on the bus. It's very clearly laid out, and as you know, the Student Code of Conduct is in our parent acknowledgements at the beginning of the year. So we need parents to read the Code of Conduct at the beginning of every year to see what are we outlining as the expectations for behavior. And then the last, and again, just a shout out to Jaime. He was part of all the committee meetings, really helpful just to change little tiny words. You know the difference between will and shall, but really working on the importance of the entry and exit points on campus and what students, how they enter and how they exited a campus. What do we do and how do we behave when we have drills and active emergencies? And again, reiterating the Fortify Florida, if you make a false report, the consequences that can happen from that. And that is my update for Code of Conduct.
Okay, board members?
Ms. Crisafulli or Dr. Moore, when I'm on campuses, I see the ID badges a lot more so than I did last year. So how do you think that's going overall?
I think there is a heightened awareness, and just in general with safety, I think the employees see the difference with, I can immediately see if this person's supposed to be on my campus. That's
Right,
one of the
right.
biggest things. You can tell if somebody does not have where's your ID? I hear that a lot. I'm going to Gifford every day to do a 6th grade ELA class, and I mean, they're doing great, but you can scan a courtyard. I'll keep that off the microphone. You can scan the courtyard. You're walking from one building to the next, and you can see 100 kids walking to the next class and whether or not they're supposed to be there. And that's super helpful for security, especially for the monitors that may not know every student's name.
Right. And then one other thing, I'm just always concerned about any door being propped open. I mean, I know with our security monitors, it's a lot, I think it's covered, but
Oh,
that's one
absolutely.
area.
And we do have the Office of Safe Schools that comes and does their walkthroughs, and Jaime, Mr. Alberti also does walkthroughs. We really haven't seen that comparatively to last year and the year before, which is fantastic.
Thank you. Well done on the Code of Conduct.
Thank you.
Mr. Dyer?
Yeah, I thought it was well done, too. 86 pages,
That's all.
updated. It is very thorough, and I think any confusion that there may have been has been corrected, so thank you.
Yeah, I do want to give a huge shout out to Heather Holden. I don't know if she's still there. She is. With Student Services and her entire team that really did the majority of the lift of this work with our community.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm sorry, you want to say? I'm just glad, I'm glad that we are where we are versus where we were several years ago. This has been the smoothest, I think, year in terms of, making corrections and edits. They just seem very ministerial as opposed to real content-heavy stuff. So I'm glad we are where we are. I'm happy to support this, and have nothing to say.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I have something to say. So, yeah, that's a lot of work. Appreciate all the work. How will our employees, and I'm thinking of the teachers, because they get hit with so many things at the beginning of the year, right? Could they possibly get a printout of this before they leave for the summer so they understand how important it is. Because a lot of times I'm hearing from employees saying, well, I sent this kid to the office and nothing was done with them. And, you know, I have to go back to the code of conduct and say, well, if you look, there's a menu of items and something was done, it had to be in here somewhere. So what you think is appropriate and what the code of conduct says might be two different things.
Yes.
So
We-
I just think that teachers, they have so much at the beginning of the year, they're overwhelmed. They don't think about reading this. They don't think it's updated as much as it has been. I think it needs to be stressed at the end of this year how much it's been updated.
Yeah, through the chair. So one of the things we would like to do is put that in the collaborator to all employees, the draft. Now, obviously, it won't be approved yet, so they can start looking at it now. Because, you know, just like you said, there's been some instances, and I feel like it was last year, but I think it might have been this fall, of a teacher that's been around for a long time, and they don't go back and look at things that have maybe been updated, and then they're going on their memory of what
Right,
it says.
and then they
So-
call a board member.
Yeah, so we're going to put it in the collaborator, and then when we get to summer and do our professional learning with administrators and school teams, we usually do a review of the highlights, similar to that, of the highlights.
And I know the first couple of days of school, you take the kids around the
Yes.
school and you mentioned all these
The different
rules and everything
sections.
that they need to know, which is important. But I also think parents need to be more aware of the student code of conduct itself and the changes and what their children are subjected to, especially if they do something wrong, they don't understand, well, why was the punishment this harsh? When in their eyes, they don't think it should have been.
And we
Well-
can work with our fabulous, oh, Kira left, our fabulous communication team to, once it's approved, putting it out.
I just think it needs to
for
be out there
parents.
all summer long.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Moore. Madam Chair, the next items, I, J, K, those are all three. I won't go into a lot of details, but as you know, we have the hardened vegetable and the addition to our single point of entries. As you know, this year we expedited that and we did 2 of our largest schools, which you're going to see a final payment to finish some of those things. This will do 3 more schools this time, and then after our innovation projects, we'll be able to wrap it up within the following year after that. So we've expedited that process. Item L is to actually release the final payment to Remnant Construction for the completion of Phase 1B of the Jimmy Graves Sports and Community Complex, that in the amount of $146,790.97. That'll be on this evening. And item M is simply a certification letter that Mr. Westenberger and Mr. Copeman and their teams walked every one of our buildings and they looked and said, that is fish room 102. Yes, it is. It matches. The sign is good. And we certified that our fish numbers match our rooms. And that certification has to be submitted annually. Item N is to extend our agreement with Brightview Landscaping. Brightview, back in 2022, I believe, was approved for a 3-year contract with 2 one-year renewals. This is the last of those renewals, $580,000 a year. They cut all our grass, they mow the retention ponds, edge, weed eat, blow, trim some basic trees. I will tell you, as running a landscape company in the past, they are probably hating that they have agreed to this 1-year no, if you look at the gas pump prices,
I know.
locking in this for 5 to 7 years is a great value to the school district. So I highly recommend us moving forward with that. And then item O is E-rate. We've talked about it before. It's a federal reimbursement program to help schools and libraries get technology in the hands of kids. Our estimated reimbursement rate is about 80%, so we spend 20 cents on a dollar. The list of stuff that Mr. Thompson is proposing to buy, network switches, routers, Wi-Fi, totals $1.5 million, which means a net cost to us of $300,000 for that $1.5 million worth of equipment through his efforts of completing all of the paperwork and going through the forms and the processes. And the last item is our surplus property. There's a little bit more than normal. As you know, we are cleaning out and purging several of our schools, which will be moving and relocating. So you'll see 22-year-old pieces of equipment. So you're going to see some old cafeteria tables. You're going to see some network equipment, some projectors, an old thing that took clay and molded it together that's 26 years old, all the way down to just some very recent projectors in the last 5 years that are just unusable. The only thing that really had a value was a pressure washer. The motor is gone. It's not worth the repair of it. And that was from Beechton Elementary, so we're writing it off. But other than that, those are all of my items.
Board members, any item?
Yeah, I'll just say I appreciate the acceleration of the safety projects. Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Jones?
Mr. Green, any of those older items, can any of them go anywhere, donated anywhere, or are they just not good anymore? You know,
We use things to the fullest extent of its use, and then where we can, we do auction it or use it in, we do have a technology company that recycles some of that stuff and pays us, and believe it or not, we're actually separating the memory out of those things because we can get more just for the memory right now with the server farms that are coming along and the prices of memory. We're actually cannibalizing that down to get the most value out of those machines instead of just a flat fee. We're selling the memory separately, so.
Cannibalizing.
So, Madam Chair,
Anybody else?
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
one comment I want to
Sorry.
make, fish report. Yeah, and that's talked about in Tallahassee a lot, about how accurate fish reports are. And you're saying that all they're doing is matching the number to that, but are they also looking at the capacity of the room?
So the capacity of the room is determined by the use of the room.
Right,
When it becomes a student station, if it is a kindergarten classroom this year, the capacity will be 18. If it is a 4 through 8 room next year, it will be 22. And if it's a 10th grade ELA class, it'll be 25. So the capacity gets determined by what grade level of student are placed in there. The
So-
square footages are always accurate. We
right.
have
So
those.
my point is, do we only do the fish report now, or do we also do it in the fall after the new changes have been made? For example,
We do the fish.
if a school wants to co-locate, and the fish report from this year says that we're going to have kindergartners in that room, and then it switches around, we have 8th graders in that room.
I believe that's annually around January, February, that they
Right.
pull those and share those. So our schools will have people in them this year when that fish report goes out.
Okay, because the big thing with that particular bill was about fish reports being accurate. And I think that's beyond us, right? They need to require that in the fall.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As a reminder, Dr. Shafty is doing interventions. Kelly had an impact review right across the street. There's a potential severe weather impact, so Ms. Christofoli and Mr. Alberti are working on that. So I moved down, so I wouldn't be alone. And we have 2 items remaining.
Yes, you are now Dr. Shafty.
Yes. Exactly, a lot less there. The remaining 2 items are the board protocols, and as we've communicated with the board, our school board attorney, Dr. Jacobs, and myself will listen to the conversation as you identify areas in which concern, modification, addition, or deletion is needed, and then we'll bring back those changes to you at an upcoming workshop. And then the other is the AD Henderson. So Ms. Berenborg, you could facilitate those 2 conversations, and we'll be actively taking notes and respond as needed.
Oh, thank you. I want to ask board members if you want to take a break now.
Yes.
Because this next item might be a little longer. Yes?
I need 5 minutes.
Okay. So we'll take 5 minutes. It's 1:43. Board discussion, and the first item is revisions to board protocols. Dr. Jones.
Thank you very much, Chair Barrenborg. As Dr. Moore said, we're just going to kind of give some highlights of some things we want to change. First of all, thank you to Ms. Enville for all the editing that you did, corrections. That's very helpful. We worked hard on this, I think, in 2021, 22 with Dr. Jacobs. You all saw some of my suggestions a couple times in emails that Ms. Enville sent out again yesterday, or last week. Just a couple main points, and then I'll give up the floor. I think anything that we have in protocols that are in policy, we could easily take out since they're already in policy. A couple things that I noticed, calling a meeting if someone wants to call a meeting, and also dealing with public comment, that is also in policy. So that could change quite a bit of the length. I think one of them was page 4, one was page 7. On page 8, I had mentioned about board meetings, just not providing last-minute information to the chair and superintendent. Obviously, once the agenda comes out at the board meeting, it's ours to amend. I completely understand that, but I don't think we ever want to do any kind of gotcha, so letting the superintendent know if something's going to be pulled or the chair knows, just so they can get the information ahead of time, so our public is also aware. On the superintendent's workshop, we did very well today on this, letting the superintendent or the person presenting to go ahead and present on all the information on one item before we ask questions. I think that works well. Page 9, meeting expectations. It's pretty wordy. I think it's important, but I think we can summarize meeting expectations in a few words just by active listening and showing respect. I think I've talked about this before. If it's an action item, we discuss, we listen, and then we vote, and that seems to work pretty well. The one thing I know was talked about before, we've had time limits on meetings. Maybe we could look at that at workshops. We always want to make sure that every board member has time to share what he or she wants to share. But maybe rotating, then heading back if someone wants to add anything, I think is important, so we can all get it on the floor before we start the real discussion after everyone has spoken. So those are my main things. Thank you.
Board members, would you like to bring up any in particular that you want to talk about?
Go ahead.
You want me?
Yeah, go. As far as I'm concerned, yeah. I'll come back and I got just a few little things.
Okay.
You can go first. You want?
Somebody make a decision.
All right.
Totally okay with it.
I think it very clearly defines the roles and responsibilities, which I like. And I would agree with anything that's in policy. I think it should be pulled. I just think it overcomplicates it. Let's see what I read. One of the things that I thought was interesting, you know, I've talked about it for the workshop, that I think that the workshop is pretty important for this process. I think due to sunshine laws, it's a very different way to work than I'm used to, where you can have a lot of give and take. You can actually talk things out in a more congenial way. This is so formal, and it makes it so difficult, really, to reach what I think that we could on many, many issues, reach consensus, but because of the process, we can't. I do think that Dr. Moore is doing something different than school board members I know of. Not every school board superintendent meets with board members every week. Not every school board member in all districts has a superintendent that is willing to give time to discuss anything virtually at any time. So I think that so many things that are done in a workshop could probably be done through our normal weekly meetings, and we come into the workshop more informed and reach a consensus perhaps better because of all the extra effort that he is doing to keep us informed and to bring those things to the forefront. So I just think we ought to point it out. It says in here that we're going to have to, a weekly basis at a minimum. And I think that is at a minimum. I think if we really look at it, it's a lot more conversation than a weekly basis, and it is formal. Polk County was interesting to me. I think they meet once a month
Yes.
with their superintendent. And that's a huge county.
Yes.
And it's an hour meeting. Well, we have that every week, which is very different. So I think so many more things could be worked out with the superintendent, or questions that we have, and then have them answered rather than having to go through some of the things that we go through. There's a couple other comments that I had here. I think the last minute materials, which Dr. Jones just talked about, always bothers me. I think, again, in anything, we need to be prepared for it and to read them beforehand. To try to react to something that is brought up at a meeting is really not fair to anyone. So I think that we do need all discussion materials in advance, and my guess is if we are not adequately prepared to discuss something, that we should probably either table it or move it to the next meeting. I thought it was interesting that they talked about the Attorney General advised that it's unwise to change a meeting or call a special meeting without uncontroversial issues. So I think that, again, it says special care should be taken to make changes for an already published agenda only for a good cause. And I thought those were very good enhancements to the protocol. I thought there was also some pretty good things in there for extending or trying to extend a board meeting, and just realizing that each of us as board members has our opinion and our vote, and sometimes we should just get on with the process and exercise our rights as board members, and so anything procedural to delay that is probably not in our best interest. Agree with that. And again, I think it's very clear in the protocols and the way it's run is the superintendent is the CEO of the district. It's interesting to me in the beginning when it talks about the way what the board approves, it creates, and it is responsible. So there are three different segments that it's talked about. We approve the district budget, and we approve the strategic plan. We don't create the strategic plan, we approve it. We create, review, and evaluate policies and protocols, that's our responsibility. We also are responsible, if we don't like what's going on, to evaluate or terminate the superintendent and school board attorney, it says, on a regular basis. So two of you guys over there better shape up, and the rest of you are okay. So anyway, I do think that I like the fact that it really called out what the responsibilities are, and I say sometimes we get bogged down by trying to take on responsibilities that are not really ours to do, and we have the ultimate veto, I should say. And you know, honestly, that's kind of the way it is in a corporation. Is that the veto, the ultimate veto the board has is firing the CEO. And other than that, they are really to advise, and pretty much just exactly the way it is here. That's the way a corporate board would work as well, and I should say that boards do exercise the right to fire a CEO when it's when they think that they should. I've been in that position once. So anyway.
All right. Anybody else?
Yes. Okay, so, get my notes here. Let's go with page 5. Well, maybe I should not go to page 5. I'll go to these other items, which seem to be a little bit easier since we were just on the discussion about removing things that are in policy, and I'm going to address this to Ms. Envil. So there are 3 things that I found in our policy 0165.1 on page 7, all the way on the bottom of page 7, in blue, or highlighted in blue. It's underlined, all guidance related to public comment, public participation procedures, and expectations for community involvement at school board meetings shall be governed by Board Policy 0169. So if we already know that, do we want to include that? That's already, I mean, we're actually stating that it's,
Right.
we have a policy that addresses those things.
Yep.
So I think that should be removed. The other thing is page 8, number 1. That is also in that same policy, since that policy talks about agendas and regular meetings and the dates in which things should be provided, including backup. That's all included in that same policy. Wait, did I go too fast for you, Ms. Envil?
Policy, we should take out. Anything in policy.
Got it? And then the third item that is also in that same policy as well is on page 9. Number 5, it would be the revised number 5, so it's very, very, very top of that page. Let me know when you're there, Sewell. Yeah, but it's your revised 5. It looks
It's
like it's.
number 8.
8, yeah.
Page 9, I'm on page 9. I'm looking at it as revised 5, but I'll read it. It says, board members shall make an effort, shall let the superintendent know in advance when to pull consent items. That's also in that policy as well.
That's not on my page 9, the way it printed, so I'm not sure what,
It's page 8.
Page 8, yeah.
page 8.
Maybe my printing is,
Okay.
off of one page, but, because I printed it
Okay,
with
page 8,
the
the
comments.
revised
So
5,
that's probably
okay.
what it was.
So are you saying take that one out,
Yeah, because that's already in the policy.
Superintendent, now?
There's just 3 things. Because I do agree we shouldn't be redundant. Good, Ms. Envil?
Yes,
Yeah, okay. And then I have a couple of questions. Now I'll go back to page 5. Page 5, there is an item on there that says the dais is intended for board member discussion and debate, not for reading statutes, laws, and regulations verbatim. What is this about?
What number is it?
Let me see which number it is.
12.
It's a crossed out number 6.
Okay,
Oh, now it's 12.
no, crossed out number 6.
But it should, I think it falls under number 11 on the revised version,
12.
whatever it is.
So we're looking at the metadata, it looks like I added it in July of 2025, so it must have been during one of our training sessions, so.
So I would just recommend removing that altogether, because you're asking, you don't ask a math teacher not to read from the math text. There are very many times where we are reading from statutes. Clearly, we just had the most recent discussion on Schools of Hope, and we were all reading from the statutes. I mean, that just seems like we're hog-tying ourselves to our own to what would be our own responsibility, which is to be the legislative body of this local, you know, of our local, to be the legislative body of our local educational system. So yeah, that, I mean, I have lots of support here, you know, legally for that, but I just would put that out there because that just seems, it doesn't make any sense to me to include that in there. And then if we can go towards the end, I have it on page 10. I don't know what you all have, but this falls under meeting expectations. I'll wait until you get there.
We're ready.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Okay, so letter I and J. I have questions about letters I and J. Specifically in I, it reads, there's a part of that reads, procedural tools should not be used to manufacture confusion or delay. What are procedural tools and what is manufacturing confusion or delay? That doesn't seem like it is it seems very subjective, and I'm not sure we should put that in protocol.
I think I took that from when we were all having our discussions about meeting expectations. And so I think I just tried to use whatever the feedback was to kind of put that in there. I think the premise behind that was nobody wants anybody to use Robert's rules for improper purposes. So.
And we have that already in our policy, so remove it?
Well, question?
Yes, go ahead.
I mean, you'll be taking all the notes and then bringing it back to us
Right.
to approve. It's just not
Yes.
because I say remove it or Mr. Dyer says remove it.
We're going to work together to
Okay, all right, I just want to make sure.
evaluate
But this is the
everything.
working
Yeah,
together.
hold on. Mr. Dyer's next.
I think that was in probably reaction to a handout that was passed out that said how to disrupt a meeting using Robert's Rules of Order. So I think it, in my opinion, it should stay. So,
Okay. Dr. Praska?
It also appears it's redundant because it appears under L, recognizing that Robert's Rules of Order can be misused or weaponized and committed not to do so.
Just need it
cetera.
once.
Yeah, that was my next one, thank you,
Okay.
Dr. Posca, because that's exactly what I was going to end in J. J also talks about that as well, similarly, where it says, I'm sorry, not J, M, where it says avoiding using procedural maneuvers, discussion tactics. If we can't define these things, we shouldn't put them in our protocols. Although I don't disagree, I just don't think that it's clear enough for us to be able to define within, unless there is a definition
I have to
or
agree
another
that
way of combining these things, but right now it's very subjective, and it seems, what it seems to me, these items here are actually referring to E. So all I, J, L, and M just see, I mean, not L, I, J, and M seem to be referring to E, which E states, refrain from questioning or attacking a board member's motives. But that also is very subjective because I can't predict what one's motive is, and I think that's pretty wrong for any one of us to be able to predict and to accuse someone of having a particular motive unless that person actually states what their motive is. Otherwise, it's very unfair to assume what someone's motive is. We wouldn't do that in a court of law. Why would we do that here?
So I want to make a comment about that. As the chair, it's like my job is to try to make sure we're following policy and procedures.
Agenda.
And I do need a clear statement of what we need to, when it needs to be stopped, I need the clear statement as to why it needs to be stopped. Because I can't, it can't be subjective. So I agree with you on items that are handed to us on the dais. That needs to be done ahead of time. That can't be done during a meeting. Only time it happened to me that I did it, I believe, I might have done it twice, but day in the legislature is usually the week before we have a board meeting. And I'm not going to not tell you what I learned up there for bills that are moving. So, and that's something that I type up or put in a PowerPoint or whatever to be able to update the board. That's the only thing I can think of that I would do at the last second, unless I was handed something, that was urgent. So, yes.
It's also not controversial or political. This is something.
It depends on what side of the law you're on.
If it's informational, you
Yeah,
know what I mean?
I'm not taking, don't have a vote up there, so, yeah. It's just bringing it to the board. And that's the one thing I can think of that would be an exception to the rule. Or if somebody attended a conference, the only thing is, if you're attending a conference on your own, that should have been done 8 days prior and given to the board. That shouldn't be something we're handed on the dais. Did you have any others?
Ms. Enville, did you get all of that, including E? Okay, thank you. So that's E, I, J, M. Those are the ones that I was referring to there. And then the last question or concern that I have is in 2, or the last item on that page, or maybe your next page, which starts with, during board business meetings, each board has a right to initially present. Do you see that? So we have, it says to present on a discussion or action item. And then after that, following the initial presentation of an item, each board member may offer initial comments on the topic for up to 3 minutes and may re-enter the queue to speak again after all board members have had an opportunity to do so. It sounds to me, and then of course after that we can vote. It sounds to me that this section is differentiating between an action item that's up for debate versus discussion. So I would proffer to change the word discussion to debate. So in Robert's rules, debating is different from, there is a discussion portion that does happen after an item is brought forward, but the debating happens during a vote, of which Robert's rule says that during debate, you have that limited time. But not during discussion, like today, during discussion, there's nothing to debate. So Robert's rules clearly identifies that during discussion, we are not actually debating an item, and there is no formal vote during a discussion session versus an item in action that is coming to us, for debate. Now, I'll support this, what I'm saying, with this policy 0165.1 that we have, and it very clearly defines, actually, we've been through this, that's why we've been here before. We've had these conversations before. It very clearly defines an action item and a proposition and workshop items and discussion items. So I'm not debating the 10 minutes, I'm just debating, right now, I'm proffering the change in that language to differentiate a discussion session, such as the one that we're having now, versus what happens during an action item. And again, this same policy defines all of that and separates those two together. Separates those two one from another.
So I have a question on that. After the word discussion, shouldn't it say item? Because I believe we discuss everything all throughout the meeting, but a discussion item is something that a board member puts forth and presents. I think that's what this is supposed to be.
Do you mean the first reference to discussion
Yeah, it says initially present on a discussion item, right?
or action item?
It says discussion or action item, but when she was referring to discussion,
Just item or
you know,
action.
I'm interpreting the discussion on anything. I think it's the discussion item, when you're bringing it forward
action
as a board member, you should present it in 10 minutes, and that way other people can have, you know, a discussion on your discussion item. So, you know, belaboring a point is similar to showing up late to an event, you know? It's disrespectful of other people's time. So I think the 10 minutes is perfect.
I do too.
But that's not the discussion right now. It's not the 10 minutes.
No, but that is my point. I'm allowed to make points.
No, I know, but what I'm saying is that the difference, what I'm trying to point out is the difference between a discussion session and a debate.
And I'm saying that the word item, if it was not just or action item, it would be discussion item or action item. That, I think, makes it a little clearer, because that's not debate when you're first presenting a discussion item as a board member. Yes, Dr. Jones.
I think in workshops or the board meetings, the person presenting, you know, start with 10 minutes, and then everybody have their turn, if you will, 10 minutes, then we come back if we need to, just so that we're not here for 40 minutes, 50 minutes, waiting for the next person to speak. So we each have the time, and then we come back if we need to, and it's worked pretty well lately. And going back to the meeting expectations, when I started with all this in April and sent my email to all of you, and thank you to Ms. Inville again for making it look good. We want to keep, you know, our meetings, our workshop, to talk about the issue, not make any kind of personal comments. Talk about the issue, have the discussion, go back and forth. If it's an action item, then we vote. And I think one thing it said, keeping the focus on the issues rather than individuals, I think that's a key point. And a lot of these other things I think we just know as professionals, but, you know, the active listening, staying engaged in the discussion, you know, just, it's the respect more than anything.
So, a point of clarification. You said and workshops, so this says just during board business meetings. Are you asking to add workshops?
That, I thought I did at one time. I'm sorry, I thought I
So
did.
you did, but the way the language was, I'm sorry, through the chair. The way the language was, it talked about taking a vote after a workshop, which we don't do.
Yeah.
So I think the distinction is, this is how I need to know from you all, how you want things to work during a workshop, where you just randomly discuss things and have that back and forth, and then how you want to have things on an action item. And I think that's where Chair was going with, if you have a discussion item versus an action item. And maybe they need to be separate paragraphs or separate sections, or just, you know, with respect to action items, blah, 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 with respect to discussion items, blah, blah, blah.
And again, I think it's been working pretty well. I just, again, even at workshops, when somebody brings something up, you want to hear what they have to say, then we all have our turn, and then we go back. Because sometimes if it's 30, 45 minutes, the other person doesn't, you know, get in there. So I'm just looking at fairness in both the workshop and the meeting, but that's my opinion.
So you want to add workshop? to
I
this?
would. And then we can obviously have to talk about these when they're presented to us again.
Okay. Mr. Dyer, you had your hand up?
No, I think we ought to add workshop too. I think it's basically the exact same issue.
Okay. Dr. Pyska?
I don't feel strongly about the time limitations personally. As far as the other changes, I agree with what everyone has said, basically.
May I? Ms. Enville, we have we have several policies that address workshops, so I don't want to be redundant in, obviously, what would be included in the protocols. Policy 0166.1 is specifically for workshops and does state that the policy shall apply, that this particular policy shall apply to workshops, discussion sessions, roundtable sessions, informational sessions, town hall meetings, intergovernmental meetings with other governmental officers, and any other meeting held by the board at which no official action of the board is taken. So I just want to be clear that if we are putting a limit on there, if we are having an intergovernmental meeting, then our 10-minute limit, or whatever is being proposed, would have to apply to every one of these particular situations as well, or, you know, all of these informal discussions, which is what the law states that they would be, informal discussions. And the other workshop items or workshop items and discussion items are also going back to that 0165.1. And I would not be in favor of the 10-minute limit for discussion items within a workshop or a discussion session. I'll give a perfect example. The last legislative update that was provided by our chair went more than 10 minutes. And that would be something that would need to be cut off at 10 minutes and then round robin style, where I think that it wasn't too long after. You know, that's an important topic that we need to get through. So, and we're already doing that, where everybody's speaking in round robin anyway. The chair chooses each particular person, or, you know, calls on each particular person regardless. So I don't see the need for it. I just see it as a way of trying to censor speech because you just don't like the way what you're hearing or anything else.
Dr. Jones?
I don't see this as a 10-minute limit. It's 10-minute limit to begin, and then we keep going round and around until we're finished. So I don't think we're censoring any speech, and that certainly was not my intention. Each take 10 minutes. If you want to come back again, the chair calls on you, both in workshop and business meeting. We don't want to censor any speech.
I think,
Yes.
I think the chair would have to adhere to the same
Oh, yeah, I mean, I can think.
limits that every other board member would.
Yep.
So
Then we go back
your
around,
legislative update will need to be 10
Chunked.
minutes or under.
It'll be chunked.
Yeah, good,
and then we go back at the end.
pithy. Good.
Yep. That's fine. I like concise, straight to the point
Yep.
meetings. Let's get to what we got to get done and let's do it right. Yes.
When you go over these, Ms. Enville, can you go over the meeting expectations? Some of them are, you know, redundant. D is, you know, states avoiding personal remarks when we have that in another one of those expectations. I forget which one it is. But, yeah, if you could just review that so that we're not restating the same thing 5 different times, that would be great. Thank you.
I think so.
Are you
I
done?
think between the two of us.
Okay.
Yes.
I have an item I had a question on. It says, make adoption complicated and confusing. Why would we do this? Can you give me an example?
That came from me.
Yeah.
Well, that was just one of the handouts we had, make adoption confusing. We don't want to do any of that. We don't want to do anything that takes us off the task of our agenda and making sure that our public knows what we're voting on, and understood that there could be an action item, like if Dr. Moore needed to add something to personnel, if we had to add something because of a state legislature all of a sudden came down, understood. So just keep it to the point, keep our community informed, keep our teachers, staff informed, and, you know, have the discussion, vote, and do the best we can for our kids.
So when I hand you all, or made that PowerPoint of the legislation update, I also handed it, or sent it to you and you so that it could go out to the public. That's not something we vote on. We don't have the right to vote on that.
No.
Sometimes I wish we did. But that was just informational. I think it's really important that we stress, don't hand something on the dais because it's not being transparent when we do that. And the public doesn't know that we're going to vote or discuss something that they wish they had been at the meeting to talk about. So I think we have to really be careful about that. Anything else anybody wants to discuss with the protocols? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So the other one is A.D. Henderson feedback. Mr. Dyer, would you like to go first?
Well, I think this was precipitated by the FPL Bright Spot and the Jimmy Graves track, how in the days of tight funding, how we could use public-private partnerships such as I guess the Learning Alliance is another good example. They're contributing over $2 million directly to the district to support 27 positions in the school district. So I think that there may be opportunities for the district to receive funding for key projects that otherwise wouldn't be there. So that was the point. Secondary is we saw the second best elementary school and the third best K through 8, no, the second best K through 8 and the third best elementary school out of 50,500 elementary schools in the U.S. Yep. So, interesting. But primarily there are other ways that the district can support the financial obstacles that we've been given to help provide quality education for all kids.
Dr. Jones?
First of all, thank you to Mr. Dyer for getting us down there safely, and thank you to Dr. Moore and Dr. Jacobs taking time out of your very busy day. I think the one thing that really stuck me the most, obviously, is the private-public partnerships. I'm sorry, I forget his name, the assistant who said he'll name a door, he'll name anything for the money.
The closet.
The closet and so forth. So we need to, really hook onto that somehow. We are in a different era right now with public schools, and I've seen it all in the 50 years. And that private-public partnership, which we have begun with Learning Alliance, a lot of our nonprofits just connecting with us, is just the way of the future. I don't think it's going to be an option. It's going to have to be something that we start to rely on. And I think we've got a good beginning. When you look at the elementary, I looked at their labs and the tools that they have and the rooms and so forth. I mean, when I saw that big microscope with was it the?
Electron microscope.
Okay, big with the lizard's feet. Remember
Yes,
that?
it's a gecko, and yes, it was
I did not teach science. Dr. Pasca, you would have loved it. I mean, and then they were taking kindergartners in there to look at that. It was just amazing. But I'm just going to say and I loved the energy from the people and the principal at the school and how they'll debate, on AI, on technology and so forth. I love that because when you have a team that will debate, you've got a good team. If you've got a team saying yes, 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 and they're not challenging you, it just doesn't work. But you know what I missed on there? I missed the high school kids. I didn't feel that. I didn't feel that community. They're all over at FAU, I think. They weren't there. Remember? They weren't there. So, I don't know. I just miss that as a former high school principal. But just the fact that we got to see it, we got to see what they do. He has the FEFP, but he doesn't have a school board. He has an advisory board. He said he really liked that, Dr. Moore. It was an advisory board versus school board. But anyway. And I know they do a lot of visits, so them taking the time out of their busy day meant a lot. But I loved watching the interaction when we saw the kids in their classrooms and, the tools that they had in the labs that were phenomenal. Thank you.
Want to speak? I know.
We missed you.
So thank you, Mr. Dyer, for being generous with getting us there in 15 minutes as opposed to 2 hours. That was lots of fun. I thought what their school is doing is really great. They have a very, very different setup. I mean, their program is very different. Their intention, their purpose, their vision, their mission is very different from many of the other schools. I love that they are thinking outside of the box in terms of not having a board and being their own district essentially, which took me a little while to kind of wrap my head around how that works. But at the same time, there are some things that I missed in it. It seemed a bit, I'm going to use the word that was shared with me, it just seems a bit sterile. It seemed like I'm used to books. I want to see books, and I didn't see any books. Not that the kids weren't supposed to use books, but while we were walking through, I just didn't see books, notebooks, pens, pencils. Like, I didn't see that. I didn't see, I don't know. But, I mean, their grades and their testing shows great scores. So it's, I guess it's just a different approach to education. And I love the technology that they have set up in their younger classrooms. And it seems great. It seems very project-based in terms of learning activities, project-based learning happening there. It's beautiful, it's clean. I mean, there are lots of really, really great things to say. I really appreciated their lab where they do their science experiments. I love the fact that they all get little lab coats. I know it sounds pretty silly, but it really gets the student in the feeling like they're going to do science. So, when you're putting on that lab coat, it's kind of like when you're going to gym and you put on your gym uniform, you feel you're going to gym. So I like that, and I think as a doctor, you would have appreciated it. There were a lot of things I was thinking about you. I wish you would have gone. That I could definitely see your hand in it. What I found even more impressive than that were the, gosh, I'm going to mess up the names, the big, huge x-ray machines and the surgical lamps where you can actually do surgery and on
Sharks,
yes.
not on people.
Yes,
On dead
on animals, and not on people. And they have these incredible x-ray machines, Dr. Posca, small and larger, where you can take full x-ray full scans of, everything, small animals, and then, larger cats, dogs, that sort of thing. And then the students actually look at those visuals and the skeletal on a screen, and they can study it. And that part was fascinating to me because it was just way too scientific for me. It was great, but it was just like, oh my gosh, there's specimens everywhere. But it was very, very well organized, very thought through. You can tell that there was purpose behind it. There was a curriculum. Now, this is the part that I would say is probably my biggest takeaway, which I love, 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 apart from all of that other stuff. It is the fact that we probably would not see this in a public school setting, but it's something that I remember when I was first hired as a teacher, and it was, this is your class, this is your subject, go and teach. There was no curriculum. There was no, here's your text, there is in this particular school, the autonomy for teachers to create their own. So the principal, superintendent there, they hire people based on merit and experience. And in some cases, they will hire someone who is not certified because that person has expertise in that area, pair that person with someone who is a licensed teacher in the room, but allow complete autonomy for that person in that expert field to teach freely and be creative and create whatever it is that they're going to learn. And that caught me by surprise because when I asked the superintendent, how do you monitor where they are within the year? And he said, we don't. We just walk in and we trust that they are doing the right thing. And, and clearly at the end of the year, all their students are performing, what did you say they were in the?
Third best out of
Third best?
50,500 elementary schools.
So like when you see some of these things that we are not used to, and then you see some of these things being implemented in this school, the end results, when we're talking about, measurable outcomes, the end results are proven positive for that particular school. So that, to me, it's like this dichotomy of completely different, like on totally different spectrums, and yet the results are great results. That was one of my takeaways, which was pretty impressive.
So I want to say thank you, Mr. Dyer, for arranging the entire thing and for getting us there and giving us the opportunity to see something totally different. Some of the takeaways I have were the Hall of Fame for all of the kids that had been published. Hall of Fame. And it was impressive. It was honoring kids who were doing brilliant things. And I think that was a huge takeaway for me, is to see how proud the kids are and what they're learning, but also how proud the staff is and what the kids have accomplished, which was nice. I loved it because of all the STEAM stuff, the electron microscope, the CT scanner, the roaches with little microchips on them. It was cool. And then I went to speak to a girl that was actually doing some research in the corner, and she was researching microplastics. I can't remember if it was in dolphin or fish or whatever it was. And I went over to our biotech class last week, and a student came up to me and told me about our project, and it was microplastics. And I was like, oh, we need to connect those two. It needs to be a really cool connection maybe that we can make for kids that are doing similar projects. I loved how they took attendance. The kids come in and they hit and we have Class Dojo, so they just hit their thing and go, and you don't waste all the time taking attendance and all that stuff in the morning or every class that they switch. The lab coats, if you want to see those, go to Osceola. Those kids wear lab coats every time they go into the science lab. So we do have that here. I just thought the PhDs, with support of the teachers, was really why they're making such phenomenal progress. You have maybe, and I loved how he put it, that the PhDs don't know how to relay it to the kids. And that's where the teacher comes in. Mm-hmm. I saw that when I worked with a teacher that was hired from Harvard and was trying to teach chemistry to high school students, and it wasn't connecting. So there is that nuance, there is that art of teaching versus just the science. So it was great. No library there. That concerned me a little bit, not having any library books. But yeah, it was an interesting, beautiful campus. I think the reason why they have so many things that are so cool is because of the naming rights. Yes. And so I think that's wonderful. I think we need to really investigate that so that our teachers can get their hands on things like that as well. Yes, sir.
You brought up the labs. It was kind of, and when I walked through Vero Beach High School, I was blown away by the biotech lab that we have. And when I think about Jeff and what he has done, what if we could really support him and give him, first-class lab like we saw there? I mean, that's, to me, is where we can really unlock the potential of what we have. I mean, we are doing great. I felt great about Indian River County, even in looking at others, and I agree. I mean, I think that, that books, and it's not the facility, it's the engaged teachers. It is the being able to support them to be their best and to do the best by kids, as Dr. Moore would say, and to give them the resources that they need to excel. And that's what excites me, is we have so much going for us here in Indian River County. Is there something that we can do that'll add a booster to all the great things that we're doing? And really, where we find the biggest constraints is we don't have the money. We don't have the money. We got a $7 million health care bill we got to absorb now. We got to cut elsewhere. We're cutting. How do we take the programs that deserve being accelerated and give them what they need to really get to their full potential. That to me is the exciting way. And I thought, again, the germ of this was the Bright Spot Playground from FP&L. I said, wow, you know, if we can do that, why can't we do it elsewhere? And that was, to me, what the whole idea was, is how do we take the great things that we're doing and really get behind them and make them best in the state?
So you mentioned Jeff Bush. I was in his classroom the
Yeah.
other day.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that we had seen this school, and I was telling him about all the equipment and all the experiments and the microplastic
Right.
experiment that was going on. And he goes down to Boca once a month for some research that he's doing, scientific research.
Uh-huh.
And I was wondering if there's a way that he could get a tour of the school and be able
Absolutely.
to get there when he's down there, if that's possible. And maybe for our Sebastian
Yes.
Biotech program
Yes.
too.
Emily, yep.
Yeah.
He leaves after school and bolts down there, so anything you can do to make that happen would be appreciated. All right, anything else?
Oh, man.
All right, I believe that we are adjourned at 2:40.
Thank you.